Well, good afternoon, everyone. Heath Pucel with an SFOI Live. I am not Bill Adams, and I do not play him on TV. However, I'm filling in for him today as he has some other things going on. And I'm excited today to introduce you to, some of you may already know him, but Corey Lindsey from Manchester, Tennessee. We're going to be talking about a very eventful outreach from what I hear every year, which is the Bonnaroo Music Festival. We'll find out more about that. Introduce you to Corey, who's going to be leading it this year, and find out a little bit more about Corey. So let me go ahead and bring Corey on here. Afternoon, brother. How you doing? I am well. Uh-oh. There we go. You're back.
Good to see you.
Good to see you, and glad to have you on. So how are things in Tennessee?
Beautiful. We've got sunny skies, 70 degrees day today. It's gorgeous, and I wish I were out there preaching today in this weather. It's awesome.
There you go. Good. Well, I can't say the same here. It's it's about half that temperature, and we have a couple inches of snow on the ground. So looking again forward to that time where it's a little bit warmer out, and of course no snow on the ground. So well, thanks for coming on anyway. As we talk about the Bonnaroo Music Festival. Before we do that, share a little bit about you're leading the outreach this year, and what's that going to be like, and just share a little bit about it. Yeah.
Bill gave me a call a couple of days after I got home from New Orleans from the Super Bowl. I was still trying to recover from that. And then he asked me, hey, you want to lead the Bonnaroo outreach this year? And I said, well, yeah, I'd love to. Terry Kohea normally leads it. He can't this year. And so Bill asked me to step in. And so I agreed, and immediately went to work trying to figure out where we were going to stay and the meals and all those, logistical things. And it's been fun and a challenge so far, but I've really enjoyed the process of preparing an outreach.
Nice. And you're from Manchester, Tennessee. How far is that from the actual site of Bonnaroo?
It is right in Manchester. I live about 1.5 miles from where the actual festival will take place.
Okay.
Close. Yeah.
Nice.
I hear the music at night at my house.
Okay.
That's close we are. Yeah.
Wow. That's kind of cool to have, just a huge music festival. I think 80 to 100,000 people pretty much in your backyard.
Yes, exactly.
So, hey, I want to talk a little bit before we dive into like Bonnaroo itself, get a chance for people to know you. How did you come to Christ?
Well, I grew up going to church, but I don't really believe I was regenerate until well into my adulthood. Was not in any way living the life. I was doing my own thing and did a lot of drinking and just didn't really have a desire to do the things of God until I went through a divorce and then a couple other bad events in my life that just kind of led me to, seeking answers and seeking something more meaningful and than what I was getting out of life. And I remember it was one Halloween night around 2005, 20 years ago. I got home from work, worked a late shift, and I was drinking and just something came over me. I emptied the beer bottle out, got my Bible out, started reading, and surrendered to Christ that night. So this October it'll be 20 years since I surrendered my life to him and started to live for him.
Oh, wow. Praise God for that.
Yeah.
Praise God for that. So, that happened 20 years ago. And the first time I met you was just almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
At the Kentucky Derby. What transpired between that? How'd you get involved in evangelism? How'd you get involved in, SFOI?
Well, that's what, an 18-year period to cover.
Yeah.
From the time I was born again till I started evangelizing.
Sure.
Like I said, I grew up going to church, and it was mostly Word of Faith, Kenneth Copeland type stuff. And so that's all I knew. So when I got born again, I kind of gravitated back to that because that was all I knew.
Sure.
and was in that for several years. And then in 2010, I got married to a beautiful woman I met on eHarmony, and
Okay.
she was Baptist, and she lived here in Manchester, which is why I live here. And I was living in Nashville at the time, but
Sure.
she's from Manchester, and so we eventually moved down here to be close to her family and stuff. And it was because of her that I started going to Baptist churches and got slowly out of the doctrine of word of faith.
Okay.
And we started going to Adam Cutshaw's church around 2017, I believe, 2017, 18.
Okay.
And that was when I really started to get the good expository teaching and learn the doctrines of grace and really fully understand the Bible, unlike I'd never had before. Started reading guys like Sproul and Spurgeon and Tozer and those guys, and came to a much deeper understanding of the doctrines of grace. And then as I was going to Adam's church, that church split in 2020. Adam quit pastoring and decided to focus on evangelism more.
Okay.
And that church split. And so then we were kind of churchless for a while and looking for a good fit. And then one of the churches we went to while we were looking was the one Adam landed in, John Holifield's church, which is now called Grace. And so we were going there, and the Lord started dealing with me like just, all I did was go to church, and then Monday through Saturday, I wasn't doing anything.
Okay.
And the Lord started dealing with me about that and saying, hey, I really felt my spirit, like, get up off the couch and do something,
Sure.
be a Sunday morning Christian. And so I didn't know exactly what that would be. I went on a retreat with Adam and Bobby McCreary in 22, just our three families together, just spending time relaxing. And I was hearing them tell their stories about, their street preaching and the things that they were encountering. And it kind of sparked something in me. And I was like, man, maybe that's what I ought to be doing, And so beginning of 23, one of my New Year's resolutions was I'm gonna start doing something for the Lord this year. I'm gonna step out in faith, and so I went to Adam. I said, "What, I kind of want to do what you're doing. What would you suggest?" And he's like, "Hey, I'm taking a group of guys to the Derby this year. Why don't you come with me? And so then you'll find out what it's all about." And so my first outreach is where I met you.
Yes.
The 23 Derby, coming up on 2 years. Yeah. And it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And I'll never forget it. And I said, yes, this is what I want to do. I want to be out here where the lost are, preaching to the lost, sharing my faith with the lost and trying to lead them to Christ. And so I've been doing it now for 2 years.
Right. So one of the most amazing experiences at the Kentucky Derby, a catalyst for where you're at now. What was there one particular thing? Was it the whole experience of the Derby? But what was it that kind of jump-started that catalyst?
I would say about an hour into the first day.
Okay.
It's still, pretty quiet around that time.
Yeah.
But there was a man that came up to me and wanted to talk to me. And so I sat down with him for a good 45 minutes. And he told me his story that he had been a Christian. He had slipped away and he wanted to get back, and he wanted me to pray for him, and he was having health issues. And so I was able to talk to him and minister to him. And after that, I was like, wow, this is what it's going to be like all the time. The rest of the weekend wasn't quite like that.
Sure.
It was mostly just people yelling at me and telling me to shut up and things like that. It was worth it for that one guy, Right. That was really what sparked me, was the encounter with that gentleman, that that one-on-one conversation.
Yeah. So you had that one-on-one conversation. It was a catalyst. It was a kickstart. You leave home from the Derby. How do we get to, a regular ongoing outreach now in Nashville?
Well, that took a little while to to get going. I didn't know what to do once I got home. I'm like, okay, I've done it. I want to go back out. I'm excited, but I don't know anybody in Nashville.
Sure.
That's the place to be, where I live. Really not. I mean, I could stand on a street corner in Manchester, but no one would hear me.
Right.
There's very few people walking around the streets in Manchester. They're mostly just driving around. But Nashville's where I need to be, but I don't know anybody. And so I signed up for the Music City Grand Prix outreach, hoping I could meet some Nashville evangelists at that. And my grandmother passed away and I couldn't go to that outreach.
Right.
But a few weeks after that, Ben Grady had an evangelism conference. And I was planning on going to it, but I didn't have the money. And then out of the blue, Adam Cutshaw texted me and said, hey, there's this conference in Nashville. You want to go? I'll pay your way. And I said, Ben Grady's conference? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, I was wanting to go to that, but I didn't have the money. Thank you, brother. And so, yeah, I went to that. And that's where I met David Correa and John Coble and Ben Gonzalez. And I asked Ben Grady that day, I said, hey, is there anybody here that's, could go out in the afternoons? And he said, go talk to that guy. And it was Ben Gonzalez. And he said, yeah. I'm off Fridays and Saturdays. My buddy David here is too. We're both off Fridays and Saturdays. We can go out on Friday afternoon if you want. And so the following Friday we were out there, and we've been doing it almost every Friday since, for about a year and a half now.
Okay. So you're out there on Broadway, one of the busiest streets, of course, in all of Nashville, where all of the bars are, people all over the place. Share with everybody kind of what's the experience on Fridays when you guys are out there ministering?
When we go out there, we're out there in the middle part of the day. We are just up from all the honky tonks. We usually set up across from Bridgestone. There's an Apple store there, and it's a great, really good place to preach. And we get the people as they're coming from the restaurants and the shops and about to head into the bar district. And so they're not drunk or anything. John Coble deals with a lot of that because he goes out later at night.
Right.
But our crowd's mostly sober, and it's different every week. It depends on what's going on in Nashville. Like 2 weeks ago, we had the SEC basketball tournament, and there's like a lot of basketball fans, and we had a lot of good conversations that day, handed out a lot of tracts. And then last week, there was nothing specific going on. It was just the honky tonk crowd, and the conversations were fewer and far between. No one was taking the tracks. And so there's good weeks down there. There's bad weeks down there. And sometimes it depends on what events are going on in town and what kind of crowd those events draw. But it's a different experience every week. I mean, this is a tourist town. We don't see this. I get asked, hey, you ever had anybody come back and tell you, or share their testimony with you that you ministered to in the past? And I said, it's a different crowd every week. It's tourists. Right. So no, we don't get, the return business, if you will.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, having been there, you have a transient audience on Broadway. You have the walking bridge. You have the Country Music Hall of Fame. There's things going on all the time in Nashville. So yeah, I can see where you'd have the continuous transient and not necessarily run into people. Although, do you have people, not necessarily maybe that have shared your testimony, but that see you, like some of the regulars there that, see you in front of the Apple Store?
Not too many. The homeless people are getting very familiar with us because we've started taking sandwiches and water for them.
Okay.
To hand out to them. So every week, they see us and hey, those are the guys with the sandwiches, and they'll come. Yeah. And we try to, share Christ with them too.
Yeah.
So that's about the only return people we see are the homeless down there.
Sure.
And it's because, we're trying to help them out and provide them with a sandwich and a drink and so forth. Frank and Eric were up from Alabama last week. Frank Rolberg and Eric Kiliansky, and we're like, man, we're so jealous. Because this is what a typical week is like for you. Yeah, well, because not many people out and about where they preach, but
right. Yeah. So what has, I'm going to ask a different question a little bit later, but what has being out there in a consistent basis, week after week, kind of shown you or taught you in regard to ministering?
That's a good question. that you just got to be persistent. Because like I said, every week is different. It's a different vibe every week. Some weeks you come home feeling really good, and some weeks you're like, man, no one was wanting to take a track and no one was talking. It's just being persistent and just staying in prayer, all the time, and being prepared when you go out there, studying the word and having something to say when you put that microphone on and not just be babbling.
Right. So overall, has this sparked, I guess you could say, even more of a catalyst beyond this to say, because I know you're working currently for a news station, but I mean, you're not going to be there forever, right?
Hopefully not.
Well, maybe so. I'm not sure. But has it sparked a catalyst to say, hey, this would be something that I would want to pursue as a way of life?
Yes, I would hope to eventually transition to that. It would take a while, and getting a lot more financial support.
Yeah.
Than what I'm getting now. I get a little bit of money every month from people, but yeah, it's a big step, and that's what I would hope to eventually do. But I'm not in a position to be able to do that just yet.
Sure. And I noticed you have Jesus in My Place Ministries.
Yes.
So and part of Nashville is the Nashville outreach is part of that then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, part of Jesus in My Place Ministries.
Sure.
And I try to go to local parks around here and hand out Bibles and offer prayer for people as well.
Okay.
I'm going to try to start preaching in Tullahoma with Jeff Rice on a couple Saturdays a month too.
Okay.
So he's always he goes out about every other week down there, and he's invited me to come out with him.
Sure. Good.
Because I want to get back to the local community too, and not just Nashville.
Right. And building those connections as well. I mean, at Ben Grady's evangelism conference, you got connections in Nashville, connecting with Jeff Rice in Tullahoma. You have Terry, who's right there as well.
Yep.
Adam, John, Don. I mean, all of these guys, that are coming around to preach in that area. So, good.
Sorry, I told Adam a few weeks ago. I said I think Coffee County, Tennessee, has more street preachers per capita than any county in the state. It's a small county, and yet we have so many guys. That are doing it.
Yeah. Well, and hey, it starts somewhere, right?
Right.
It starts in Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, to the uttermost parts of the world. So there it is. Coffee County is the place. That's where Jerusalem's, Lord willing, going to expand.
Amen.
So did want to ask a question, because right now, as we're talking about your journey overall, what's the Lord teaching you? What's he showing you currently?
Right now, the last couple of weeks, I've been really digging deep into John's Gospels, particularly John 15, and really trying to do what that says and abide in the vine that is Jesus Christ. And
sure,
to know that literally apart from him, we can do nothing, that we have to stay plugged in and rely on him as our source for all things, and be, people don't like to be dependent, but we have to be dependent on Christ. I mean, we like it says, apart from me, you can do nothing. So
right.
That's what really has been hitting home with me lately, and just trying to, study that out and make it even more real in my everyday life.
Sure. Have you, since he's been showing you that, have you kind of worked that out a little bit to even preach that in Nashville, or is it just more of the Lord working on you?
I have preached John 15 before and that aspect, but that it's been a while. But yeah, it's mainly been for my own personal benefit that I've been studying that.
Well, praise God for that. Praise God. So let's talk a little bit. Coming up here just a couple weeks, or not a couple weeks, maybe a couple months anyway. We're not that close yet. The Bonnaroo Music Festival, which I know usually leads up and butts up. I'm going to put a little plug in for that right before the George Whitfield Program Fellowship Conference, but kind of like the weekend before that.
Mm-hmm.
Share with us a little bit about Bonnaroo. You said you hear the music, you're a mile away from it. What is the Bonnaroo Music Festival?
It is a festival of music that I don't know anymore. I'm completely unfamiliar with any of the artists that are there. There are a couple of big names, like a couple of country stars will come, but it's mainly like alternative type rock that I've never heard of 99% of the acts that come there. But
okay,
they come and they play loud music and they draw in. It's like a modern day Woodstock. 100,000 or so people on a farm, a big wide open farm space with set up in tents. They sleep in tents all night. They're there for 4 days. It's 4 full days of music. And, they're partaking in drugs and drinking and who knows what else, inside those tents at night. And it's a place of pretty blatant out in the open sin.
Mm-hmm.
I was out there for a day of evangelizing last year. And we had people walking by without a stitch of clothing on and not a care in the world about that. No shame at all. And, the LGBTQ transgender communities out there en masse at those events as well. And putting their pride flags up and trying to shout us down and shut us up.
Sure.
So it's an experience for sure.
Yeah. So that's what you can expect over those couple of days anyway, is just wide open, hey, do whatever you want. Has there been, at least last year when you were there, any ministry experiences of the Lord working on people over the day that you were out there?
Yeah, what I didn't expect is we had people coming up and talking to us. There were 2 or 3 in particular that came and talked to me and another guy named Max that I spent most of the day having one-on-ones with, that were there as kind of like babysitters or designated drivers for other people. And
okay,
they were bored and wanted to come over and see what we were talking about, and so they were people that weren't there to engage and partake in everything that was going on there. They were there, like I said, to keep an eye on their buddy and make sure they got home safe.
right.
So they would come and talk to us, and we would share our faith with them and share the gospel with them. So that was one aspect I wasn't expecting. I didn't even think that there'd be people, that aren't there to partake, that are just there to keep an eye on their buddy or whatever.
Yeah. And that's June 12th through the 14th, right?
Correct.
And, where are you staying? What's the weekend going to look like?
We are staying at the church I attend now. It's Rutledge Falls Baptist Church. It's right in between Manchester and Tullahoma. It's about 10 or 15 minute drive from there to Bonnaroo. So we'll all show up Thursday night, have a meal, and I'll just kind of introduce everything that is going to be going on for the weekend. And then on Friday morning, we'll get up and, of course, have prayer and teaching and breakfast. Andy Sherrill's going to lead teaching on Friday morning, and then we'll head out and be out there for 6-7 hours. It's a very hot atmosphere out there, and there's no place to get shade.
Okay.
So, like a lot of people say, you only do 6 hours. It's the brutal 6 hours of intense heat, and you drink a lot. It takes a lot out of you. And so it's a lot. I asked Terry about that, and he said it's because of that heat and so forth. And plus, after a certain time, the music gets too loud to where no one could even hear you.
Right.
If you did stay longer. So we'll be out there from around 10 in the morning to 4:30 or so in the afternoon, Friday, and then we'll do it again Saturday. Robert Paulson will lead us in teaching Saturday morning. And so we're going to do Friday and Saturday for about 6.5 hours each day. Okay.
So, it's on this farm. Obviously the farmer rents it out, or, however that kind of works itself out. Where are you guys ministering? Are you ministering inside the festival? Are you outside? Are you on the road?
We are right in the middle of it. There's a county road that runs right through the heart of it.
Okay.
and they have police presence on either end that won't let any cars through a certain point. And so we have to be escorted in by police and dropped off in the morning, and then we're allowed inside the barricades
Sure.
to where all the festivities are going on. And so along that road, we'll set up 3 spots, one on the south end, one right in the middle, and one on the north end. And yeah, I mean, we're literally right in the heart of it. And
Okay.
all you see is people everywhere, every direction you look, you just see tents and people. It's crazy.
Sure.
I drove out there just to kind of, get a good feel for it a few weeks ago. And I'm like, I can't believe that this empty farmland is, going to be transformed like that in just a couple months.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
happens every year.
Yeah. So how many guys are you looking to join you?
16, counting
Okay.
15 other guys.
Sure.
I've got, including me, 5 that have signed up, and I've got another 7 that have said they're going to sign up.
Okay.
So if they all do, we got about four spots or so left. If all those other guys that say they're going to sign up do.
Sure.
But yeah, we still have room. We still have room for people if you're interested.
Yeah. And I have the link there. Go on out to SFOI.org, click on Gospel Invasion, click on the Bonnaroo Music Festival, or type it in that we have it there. Come join Corey, in Manchester, Tennessee. I've heard stories. I personally have not been there, but I've heard stories that it is a wild opportunity to share the gospel in a place that desperately needs it over that weekend. So
yes, for sure.
Yeah. Well, good. Corey, anything else you want to share?
I would say, I don't know that I would recommend anyone this be their first outreach.
Okay.
It's pretty intense. If you've never done one before, I don't know that I would recommend this one, but it's definitely not for the faint of heart. You will get a lot of hostility while you're out there. And so just got to be prepared for that.
Yeah. So just how you're describing it with the actual scene and some of the experience. So not possibly your first outreach, but at the same time, if you're considering, or if you've already signed up for it, how can guys start to prepare now? I mean, what is your advice to them to prepare for this outreach?
Pray a lot.
Sure.
Pray's the key. I know from my own experience, like over the last 2 years, the more prayed up I am heading into an event, the better it seems to go.
Right.
The more fruitful it is.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, that's the number one thing for sure. Is just to be prayed up and be ready.
Good. So last question here for you. You're standing I'll use like the Super Bowl, because that's roughly about 100 guys, if not more. So you're standing in a room with a bunch of guys who are trying to figure out how to get started, how to, start diving out into the marketplace to either preach or share the gospel. What advice would you give them as to how to get started?
I guess the similar to the route that got me started, find someone else that's already doing it, talk to them, pick their brains, go with them to an outreach and just see what it's about for yourself. And if it's what the Lord's really calling you to do, you will definitely not regret it. It is amazing.
Yeah. Well, good. Well, Corey, thank you, brother, for sharing with us. Again, Corey's going to be leading the Bonnaroo Music Festival, looking for about a handful of other guys. Be prayed up, because this is one of those outreaches where if you're not prayed up, you're going to probably operate in the flesh, and who knows, it may not go well. So this is definitely one to increase your prayer life in preparation for it, and join Corey in Manchester here coming up June 12th through the 14th. Anything else you want to share, Corey?
Not that I can think of.
All right. Well, I am going to put up Corey's information again, whether it is for the Bonnaroo Music Festival. If you're just hearing this, you want to look to support Corey, find out what else is going on. Jesus in My Place Ministries, you have his phone number, his website, his email there. Get in contact with him. If you want to talk to him about being brand new and his experience as well that you've heard more on, definitely seeing a catalyst, I guess you could say, from his first time until where he is now faithful in sharing the gospel. So, brother, always a pleasure to talk with you. And Lord willing, I won't see you at the Derby, but maybe I'll see you after Bonnaroo if you're going to be at the George Whitefield Program Fellowship Conference.
I won't be able to make it this year, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
But maybe sometime down the line.
All right, man, we will do that. So glad to be with you, and just hold tight.
Thank you.
Yeah. So again, Corey Lindsey, Jesus in My Place Ministries, Bonnaroo Music Festival, June 12th through the 14th, Manchester, Tennessee. It's a great time to really, really dive in and share the gospel of Jesus Christ with people who desperately need it. Not that they don't need it outside of the Bonnaroo Music Festival, but again, from the stories I've heard, there is, some great contention toward the gospel, which is not to be not expected, because Corey was talking about John 15 and abiding in the vine. And you see after that what the reaction is, because Jesus tells his disciples as well what the reaction is going to be. If they persecuted me, they will persecute you because of who I am. So again, if you want to find out more information about either ministering in Manchester, ministering in Nashville, getting involved with them on Friday nights, and or in touch with Corey about his experience, here's his information there. If you want to learn how to get started in with any SFOI event and or the things that are going on as far as being equipped, being built up, being trained up, we have scrolling down there, sfoi.org, or Bill's information, or myself, Heath Pucel at gmail.com, or 920-322-5089. We'd love to talk to you about seeing the gospel and laborers for the harvest go out so people would hear the gospel, believe, and be saved. So hope you have a great week. Hope you are out there ministering the gospel, and Lord willing, we'll see you next week.